Commander Zixala pressed her crystal hands against the viewing screen of her research ship. The ancient ruins below stretched across the dead planet's surface like scars. For 3 months, her team had been digging through these strange remains, trying to understand what happened here so long ago. The Galactic Confederation had been peaceful for 300 years. 12 different alien species worked together, traded with each other, and shared their knowledge. Wars were things from old history books. The galaxy was safe, calm, and happy. But these ruins told a different story. "Commander, we found another weapon site," called out Dr. Mortak, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. He held up a piece of twisted metal that still hummed with unknown energy. This one could have destroyed an entire moon. Zixala walked over to examine the artifact. Her crystal body reflected the dim light as she turned the metal piece in her hands. "How old is it?" "At least 10,000 years. Maybe more." Dr. Mortak pointed to strange markings on the metal. "These symbols match the ones we found at the other dig sites. The ones that talk about the Terran Ancients. The Terran Ancients were legends, stories that parents told their children about an ancient warrior race that once fought terrible battles across the galaxy. Most people thought they were just myths, like monsters under the bed or ghosts in old houses. But Zixala was starting to believe the stories might be real. "What do the symbols say?" she asked. Dr. Mortak checked his translation device. "Something about tactical nuclear deployment and acceptable losses. The language is very strange. It talks about war like it was normal." Zixala felt a chill run through her crystal form. The Confederation species only fought when they had no choice. And even then, they tried to end conflicts quickly with minimal damage. But these ancient weapons were built for total destruction. "Commander," another team member ran toward them, his 6 legs moving quickly across the rocky ground. "You need to see this. We found a data core that still works." They followed him to a deep excavation site. At the bottom, a strange black cube sat in the center of what looked like a command center. The cube pulsed with soft light and holographic images flickered around it. "We managed to activate it," the team member explained. "But the information is disturbing." Zixala touched the cube with one crystal finger. Immediately, images filled the air around them. She saw massive space battles with thousands of ships. She watched explosions that could be seen from other star systems. She witnessed armies of strange, 2-legged creatures fighting with weapons that turned matter into energy. "These are the Terrans," Dr. Mortak whispered. "The humans from the old stories." The images showed the human warriors in detail. They were smaller than most alien species, with soft pink or brown skin and only 2 arms and 2 legs. But they fought with a fury that made Zixala's crystal form vibrate with fear. They seemed to enjoy battle, shouting and laughing even as they destroyed their enemies. "Look at this." Dr. Mortak pointed to one image. "They're fighting something mechanical. The enemy in the images was made of dark metal and moved like a swarm of insects. The machines consumed everything in their path, turning planets into more machines. But the humans fought them anyway, using tactics that seemed impossible. The data says these machines were called Devourers," Dr. Mortak read from his scanner. "They appeared every 10,000 years to harvest the galaxy. The humans were the only ones who could stop them." "What happened to the humans?" Zixala asked. The cube showed more images. The humans had won their war against the machines, but the cost was terrible. Their worlds were damaged, their fleets destroyed, their people exhausted. In the final images, the remaining human ships gathered together and flew toward a small yellow star at the edge of the galaxy. They went home. Dr. Mortak said quietly, "The data calls it Earth. After the war, they returned to their homeworld and were never seen again." Zixala stared at the images. "Why did they leave?" "They saved everyone." "Maybe," Dr. Mortak suggested. "The other species were afraid of them. Warriors that strong might be dangerous even as friends." Before Zixala could respond, her communication device began beeping urgently. She activated it, and the face of Admiral Corinth appeared in a hologram. The old Zentari leader looked terrified. "Commander Zixala, you need to return to the fleet immediately," Admiral Corinth said. "We have an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" she asked. "Our deep space sensors have detected something approaching from dark space. Something big." The Admiral's voice shook. "Multiple objects, mechanical in nature, consuming everything in their path." Zixala felt her crystal body go cold. "How big?" "They've already destroyed the Outer Rim colonies. 3 entire star systems gone. Turned into more machines." Admiral Corinth paused. "Commander, the objects match descriptions from your ancient data files. We think the Devourers have returned." The cube behind them pulsed brighter, as if responding to their conversation. New images appeared, showing the mechanical swarm growing larger and stronger. The data files began counting down. Next harvest cycle, 10,000 years. Status, active. How long do we have? Zixella asked. At their current speed, they'll reach the core worlds in 6 months. Our defense fleets are moving to intercept, but... Admiral Corinth looked defeated. Commander, our weapons barely scratch them. They're using our own destroyed ships to make more of themselves. Dr. Mortok looked at the ancient weapon in his hands, then at the images of human warriors. Commander, what if the legends are true? What if the humans are still out there? Zixella thought about the final images from the cube. The human ships flying toward their distant home, carrying warriors who had saved the galaxy once before. It seemed impossible. 10,000 years was a long time. The humans were probably extinct or so changed they wouldn't remember their warrior past. But what choice did they have? Admiral, she said into her communication device, I need to speak with the Confederation Council immediately. The Council is already in emergency session. What do you want to tell them? Zixella looked at the ruins around her, at the weapons that could destroy moons, at the images of warriors who laughed in the face of death. Tell them we need to find Earth. The communication ended, leaving them alone with the pulsing cube and its images of ancient war. In the distance, Zixella could see her research ship preparing for takeoff. Soon they would return to the fleet and begin the most important mission in galactic history. They would search for a species that might be only legend. They would travel to a world that might not exist. They would ask for help from warriors who might have forgotten how to fight. Because if the humans were really gone, if the Terran ancients were truly just myths, then the galaxy was about to learn what the word hopeless really meant. The cube pulsed one final time, showing an image of a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness of space, Earth was waiting. The question was, would they find sleeping giants or only empty graves? The Confederation diplomatic ship Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a small yellow star. Ambassador Veltar of the Zentari species stood on the bridge, looking at the third planet from the sun. It was blue and green and covered with swirling white clouds. Scanners show the planet is alive, reported the ship's science officer, a purple-skinned Nexari. Billions of life forms, large cities, technology. This is definitely not a dead world. Veltar felt his heart's beating faster. The journey to find Earth had taken 2 months. During that time, the Devourers had destroyed 8 more star systems. The Confederation's best fleets had tried to stop them and failed completely. This blue world was their last hope. Are there any signs of the humans from the old legends? Asked Commander Zixella. She had insisted on coming along despite her crystal body being fragile for space travel. Scanning now. The science officer replied, I'm detecting radio signals, satellite networks, and... Wait, there are massive metal structures in orbit. They look like... He paused, checking his readings twice. They look like weapons platforms. Through the viewing screen, they could see Earth growing larger. As they got closer, they noticed something strange. The beautiful blue planet was surrounded by a ring of metal objects. Space stations, defense platforms, and ships that were clearly built for war. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. They're speaking in... This is odd. They're using ancient Terran language patterns from our historical files. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in the old tongue that sounded harsh and quick. Unknown vessel, you have entered Earth defense space. State your identity and purpose. Ambassador Veltar activated the translator that his team had built using fragments from the archaeological dig. Greetings, people of Earth. We are representatives of the Galactic Confederation. We come seeking the descendants of the Terran ancients. There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, but this time it sounded amused. Terran ancients? That's a new one. Hold your position. We're sending an escort. 3 ships approached the Harmony. They were unlike anything in the Confederation fleet. Where alien ships were smooth and elegant, these were covered with weapon ports and armor plating. They looked like they were built for fighting, not exploration. Follow us to Station Alpha, the voice instructed. Try anything stupid and we'll turn you into space dust. Commander Zixella was surprised by the hostile greeting. They threaten us immediately. These cannot be a peaceful people. Maybe that's exactly what we need, Veltar replied quietly. Station Alpha was enormous, a massive military installation that could house thousands of ships. As the Harmony docked, the alien delegation could see human workers moving around in mechanized suits, repairing weapons and loading ammunition. The docking bay doors opened, and the first humans they had seen in 10,000 years walked in. Captain Sarah Chen was shorter than most alien species, with dark hair and brown eyes. She wore a military uniform covered with insignia that the aliens didn't recognize. Behind her walked a squad of soldiers carrying weapons that looked far too big for their small frames. "Welcome to Earth," Captain Chen said in perfect modern galactic standard. "Sorry about the ancient language earlier. We thought it might make you more comfortable." Ambassador Veltar was confused. "You speak our language? We've been monitoring your communications for about 3,000 years, Chen replied casually. "We know all about your confederation, your peaceful trade routes, your art festivals. Nice setup you've got out there. But why didn't you make contact?" asked Commander Zixala. Captain Chen smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Because you called us ancients and legends, past tense. You thought we were dead. That was fine with us." She led them through the station corridors. The walls were covered with images of human warriors in different time periods, ancient knights with swords, soldiers with projectile weapons, and modern space marines with energy rifles. Every image showed humans fighting something. "Your people seem very focused on war," observed Dr. Mortak. "We prefer to call it being prepared," Chen replied. "See, we remember the Devourers. We remember how your ancestors ran away when the machines came. We also remember that the galaxy is a dangerous place, and peace only lasts as long as someone is willing to fight for it." They entered a briefing room where more humans waited. Admiral Jackson was an older man with gray hair and scars on his hands. General Rivera was a woman with cybernetic implants replacing her left arm. Colonel Park looked young but had eyes that seemed very old. "So," Admiral Jackson said, sitting down across from the aliens, "the Devourers are back." "How did you know?" Feltar asked. "Because it's been 10,000 years, General Rivera answered. "They're predictable. They harvest, they sleep, they harvest again. We've been tracking their sleep cycle since our great-great-grandparents fought them the first time." Colonel Park activated a holographic display showing the current galaxy. Red dots marked where the Devourers had struck. "They're following the same pattern as before. Hit the outer systems first, build up their numbers, then move toward the core worlds. Our fleets can't stop them," Commander Zixala admitted. "Their technology adapts too quickly. Our weapons have no effect." "That's because you're fighting them like they're an enemy fleet," Captain Chen said. "They're not. They're a virus. You don't negotiate with a virus or try to minimize casualties. You burn it out completely." The humans began showing tactical displays. The aliens were horrified by what they saw. Human battle plans called for ramming attacks, nuclear weapons, and something called scorched earth tactics. These strategies would cause massive destruction, Dr. Mortak protested. "Yes," Admiral Jackson agreed. "That's the point. The Devourers use resources to build more of themselves, so we make sure there are no resources left for them to use. But the civilian populations will be evacuated first," General Rivera said firmly. "We don't sacrifice innocents, but we also don't leave anything useful for the enemy." Ambassador Veltar looked around the room at the human faces. They were calm, professional, and completely serious about their violent plans. "Why would you help us? Your people could stay safe here on Earth." Captain Chen leaned forward. "Because we learned something 10,000 years ago. Evil that isn't completely destroyed just comes back stronger. The Devourers won't stop with your worlds. Eventually they'll come for us too. Also," Colonel Park added with a slight smile, "we've been preparing for this fight for 10 millennia. It would be a shame to waste all that preparation." Admiral Jackson stood up and activated another display. It showed the human fleet hidden throughout Earth's solar system. Thousands of warships all built for one purpose, destroying the Devourers completely. "We'll help you," Jackson said, "but we do this our way. No half measures, no mercy for the machines, and no stopping until every last Devourer is scrap metal." Commander Zixala felt her crystal body vibrate with a mix of fear and hope. These humans were exactly like the warriors from the ancient images, violent, determined, and absolutely terrifying. But they were also willing to fight for people they had never met. "What do you need from us?" she asked. "Intelligence," Captain Chen replied. "Ship movements, defensive positions, civilian evacuation routes. We'll handle the actual fighting." "When do we begin?" Ambassador Veltar asked. Admiral Jackson smiled, and for the first time it looked genuinely warm. The fleet launches in 6 hours. Hope you're ready for a war, Ambassador, because we're about to show the galaxy what humans do to things that threaten our friends. As the aliens were escorted to guest quarters, they could hear announcements echoing through the station. All personnel to battle stations. Operation Devourer Hunt is now active. The sleeping giants had awakened. The galaxy was about to remember why humans were legends. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Revenge, watching the tactical display show the disaster ahead. The Confederation's Fifth Fleet was retreating from the Kalar system, their elegant ships damaged and scattered. The Devourers had consumed 2 planets and were building more of themselves from the wreckage. Sir, Confederation Admiral Theclon is requesting immediate assistance, reported Lieutenant Commander Walsh, a young officer with 3 years of combat experience. Tell him we'll be there in 20 minutes, Martinez replied, and tell him to get his people clear of the combat zone. Commander Zixala, now serving as the human fleet's liaison, stood beside the Admiral. Her crystal form reflected the red warning lights as she watched the display. Admiral, there are over 2 million Confederation personnel in that system. Which is why we're going to get them out, Martinez said calmly. Walsh signaled the fleet. Operation Sledgehammer is now active. The human task force dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kalar system. 50 ships against a Devourer swarm that had already grown to over 300 units. By all military logic, the humans should have retreated immediately. Instead, they accelerated toward the enemy, Confederation fleet. This is Admiral Martinez, the Admiral broadcast on all frequencies. Clear the combat zone immediately. We're about to make things very loud. Admiral Theclon's voice came through the speakers, strained with panic. Admiral Martinez, our scans show you're outnumbered 6-1. You need to retreat. Negative. We're not here to retreat. We're here to teach these machines what happens when they mess with our friends. The human ships spread into attack formation. Unlike Confederation vessels, which were designed for exploration and defense, every human ship was built purely for destruction. They bristled with weapons, armor, and systems that the aliens had never seen before. Sir, Devourer main fleet is moving to intercept, reported Walsh. They're adapting to our approach vector. Good, Martinez smiled. They're thinking like a fleet. That makes them predictable. The Devourers attacked with their usual tactics. Coordinated strikes designed to disable enemy ships for conversion into more machines. Their weapons were precise, their movements calculated. Their strategy based on 10,000 years of successful conquests. The humans responded by ignoring all military logic. The destroyer Fury flew straight at a Devourer heavy cruiser, firing every weapon it had. When its missiles ran out, it fired metal slugs. When the slugs ran out, it rammed the enemy ship at full speed, both vessels exploding in a ball of fire. Did that pilot just sacrifice his ship? Commander Zixala asked in shock. Nope, Martinez replied. He evacuated the crew to escape pods 30 seconds ago. Now watch this. The escape pods from the Fury didn't flee to safety. Instead, they flew toward other Devourer ships, attached themselves to the hulls, and exploded. Each pod carried enough nuclear explosives to crack a battleship in half. The Confederation forces watched in amazement and horror as human ships used tactics they had never imagined. The cruiser Vengeance pretended to be disabled, then fired nuclear torpedoes when Devourer boarding craft got close. The battleship Thunder used its main guns to throw chunks of destroyed enemy ships at other targets. Admiral, Commander Zixala said weakly, your people fight like they're insane. Negative, Martinez corrected. We fight like we're angry. The battle continued for 3 hours. Every time the Devourers adapted to human tactics, the humans changed their approach. When the machines learned to avoid ramming attacks, the humans started using their ships as mobile bombs. When the Devourers began jamming human communications, the humans switched to pre-planned chaos tactics. Captain Rodriguez of the heavy cruiser Warhammer exemplified the human approach. When his ship's weapon systems were destroyed, he ordered his crew to fire the lifeboats as projectiles. When the engines failed, he used controlled explosions to steer. When the Devourers tried to board his ship, his crew met them in the corridors with chainsaws and flamethrowers. Rodriguez, what's your status? Martinez asked over the comm. Ship's dead, sir, but the crew's having a great time, Rodriguez replied cheerfully. We've turned the cargo bay into a fortress and we're using furniture as weapons. The machines seem confused by our tactical approach. That's because they've never fought humans before, Martinez said. They're programmed to fight rational opponents. The turning point came when the Devourers tried their ultimate tactic, mass conversion. They began breaking down the destroyed ships to build more of themselves, growing their fleet even during the battle. The humans had been waiting for this. All ships, execute Protocol Omega, Martinez ordered. Every human vessel in the system activated hidden systems. The destroyed ship hulks that the Devourers were converting suddenly exploded with electromagnetic pulses, virus programs, and logic bombs. The machines had been eagerly absorbing poison technology. The Devourer fleet began making random movements, firing on their own ships, and trying to execute contradictory orders. Their perfect coordination collapsed into mechanical chaos. "Now," Martinez said quietly, "all ships weapons-free. Show them what humans do to things that hurt our friends." The remaining human ships tore into the confused Devourer fleet with savage efficiency. They didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They made sure nothing useful remained. Every piece of scrap metal was vaporized, every component reduced to cosmic dust. When the battle ended, the Kalar system was silent except for the Confederation rescue ships collecting survivors. The Devourer swarm was completely gone, not even leaving wreckage behind. Admiral Theclon's voice came through the communication system, filled with awe. "Admiral Martinez, how did you win?" "By all tactical calculations, you should have been destroyed." Martinez looked at the empty space where 300 enemy ships had been. "Admiral, you've been fighting the Devourers like they're an enemy army." "They're not. They're a disease, and humans have been fighting diseases for a very long time." Commander Zixala stared at the tactical display, showing 0 enemy contacts. "Your casualties were minimal." "How is that possible?" "Because we planned for this exact battle about 8,000 years ago," Martinez explained. "We've run simulations, built specific weapons, and trained our people for one job, killing Devourers. But your tactics seem so chaotic." "That's because the machines think in patterns," Lieutenant Commander Walsh added. "Chaos breaks patterns, fear breaks logic, and anger." He smiled. "Anger makes humans do impossible things." As the human fleet regrouped, messages began coming in from across the galaxy. Confederation forces that had witnessed the battle were asking for human tactical advisors. Other species wanted to know how they could learn these new fighting methods. Admiral Martinez studied the reports with satisfaction. "Commander Zixala, send a message to the Confederation Council. Tell them the real war is just beginning." "What do you mean?" she asked. Martinez activated a star map showing Devourer positions throughout the galaxy. "We didn't just win a battle today. We announced to every machine in the galaxy that humans are back in the war business." He paused, looking at the scattered red dots that marked enemy positions. "And we're very, very good at our business." The sleeping giants weren't just awake now. They were hunting. 6 months after the Battle of Kalar, the war had spread across the entire galaxy. The Devourers were no longer advancing in a predictable pattern. Human tactics had forced them to change their strategy, and now they fought with desperate fury. Commander Zixala stood in the war room of the human command ship Defiance, watching dozens of alien officers work alongside human strategists. The crystal walls of her body reflected the holographic battle displays showing conflicts in over 40 star systems. "The Vorthak, crystal singers have adapted our resonance warfare techniques," reported Colonel Park, pointing to a tactical display. "They're using harmonic frequencies to shatter Devourer hull plating from the inside." "And the Mirloft?" asked General Rivera. "They're treating space combat like deep-sea hunting," Park smiled. "They wait in asteroid fields and ambush Devourer scouts." "Very effective." Admiral Martinez nodded approvingly. "What about our Xerian friends?" "That's the most interesting development," Park continued. "They've completely abandoned their philosophical objections to violence. Yesterday, they used their telekinetic abilities to turn a destroyed space station into a projectile weapon." Commander Zixala was amazed by how quickly the galaxy had changed. Species that had been peaceful for centuries were learning to fight with human-inspired fury. But she was also worried about the cost. Admiral were receiving reports that some Confederation species are having trouble with these new tactics. She said carefully, The Zentari Council is concerned about the psychological effects on their crews. Martinez looked up from a tactical display. What kind of effects? They're starting to enjoy combat, Zixala explained. The Zentari have always fought only when necessary, with regret and sadness. But their pilots are now laughing during battles, taking unnecessary risks, celebrating enemy defeats. Sounds like they're learning to be human, Lieutenant Commander Walsh commented. That's what worries them, Zixala replied. Before Martinez could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Admiral, called out the communications officer. We're receiving an emergency transmission from Captain Chen's strike team. The main display activated, showing Captain Sarah Chen's face. Behind her, sparks flew from damaged ship systems and the sound of explosions could be heard in the background. Admiral, we've captured a Devourer command node, Chen reported, breathing heavily. But the thing is still active and it's trying to take control of our ship's systems. Evacuate immediately, Martinez ordered. Set the ship to self-destruct. Negative, sir. We think we can use this. Chen's image flickered as another explosion rocked her ship. The command node contains the Devourer network protocols. If we can corrupt it, too dangerous, Captain. Get your people out of there. Chen smiled, and it was the kind of expression that made enemy commanders surrender immediately. Sir, with respect, this is what humans do. We take stupid risks for big rewards. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Should we send a rescue fleet? Asked Colonel Park. No, Martinez said quietly. Chen knows what she's doing. If anyone can turn a Devourer command node into a weapon, it's her. 2 hours later, they received another transmission. This time, Chen looked tired but triumphant. Admiral, we've successfully infected the command node with a virus package. Our computer specialists have loaded it with false data, logic bombs, and what they're calling aggressive stupidity algorithms. Meaning? Rivera asked. The node will tell other Devourers to prioritize targets that don't exist, attack positions that aren't strategically important, and generally make decisions that would embarrass a 5-year-old child. Martinez grinned. Deploy it. Already done, sir. We've sent the infected node back to the main Devourer fleet with a tracking beacon. They should reintegrate it into their network within 6 hours. The results were immediate and spectacular. Across the galaxy, Devourer forces began behaving irrationally. They attacked empty space, ignored strategic targets, and started firing on their own ships. The mechanical precision that had made them so dangerous was replaced by electronic confusion. Admiral, reported the sensor officer, Devourer Fleet Gamma just flew past the Nixari home system without stopping. According to our monitors, they're heading for an empty nebula and trying to harvest gas clouds. Fleet Delta is attacking a moon made entirely of ice, added another officer. They're converting it into ice-based machinery that doesn't work. Commander Zixala watched the tactical displays with fascination. How did you know this would work? Because, Martinez explained, humans have been dealing with computer viruses since we invented computers. We know how to make machines do stupid things. But the war was far from over. The Devourers might be confused, but they were still dangerous. And now they were adapting again, trying to purge the infected systems from their network. Sir, called out Colonel Park, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. The Devourers are starting to isolate their infected units. They're cutting them off from the main network and destroying them. How long before they clean the virus out completely? Asked Rivera. 12 hours, maybe less. Martinez stood up and activated the galaxy-wide communication system. All human fleets, all Confederation forces, this is Admiral Martinez. Operation Final Hunt begins now. We have 12 hours to destroy every Devourer in the galaxy. The response was immediate. Across dozens of star systems, combined human and alien fleets began moving toward Devourer positions. The Vorthak Crystal Singers prepared their harmonic weapons. The Mirloft organized their ambush fleets. The Zarion gathered their telekinetic warriors. Commander Zixala, Martinez said, I need you to coordinate with the Confederation fleets. Make sure they understand. This isn't about territory or resources anymore. This is about extinction. Either we destroy them completely, or they come back stronger. Zixala activated her communication systems and began sending orders across the galaxy. As she worked, she listened to the human tactical discussions and realized something profound had changed. The humans weren't just fighting to win anymore. They were fighting to make sure this war could never happen again. They wanted to eliminate not just the current Devourer threat, but the very possibility of future Devourer threats. "Admiral," she said when she finished her communications, "your species thinks very differently about war than mine does." "How so?" Martinez asked. "We fight to survive. You fight to ensure survival." Martinez looked at the tactical displays showing human and alien fleets converging on Devourer positions throughout the galaxy. "Commander, 10,000 years ago, we learned that some enemies don't negotiate, don't surrender, and don't stop. The only way to deal with them is complete victory. Even if it means destroying entire star systems?" "Even if it means destroying entire star systems," Martinez confirmed. "Because the alternative is watching them destroy entire civilizations." As the final assault began, Commander Zixala understood why her people's ancestors had called humans legends. It wasn't because they were fearless. It was because they were willing to do whatever was necessary to protect the things they cared about. And right now, they cared about making sure the galaxy stayed safe for everyone who lived in it. The tide hadn't just turned. It had become a tsunami of organized violence aimed at washing the Devourer threat out of existence forever. 2 years after the last Devourer was destroyed, High Coordinator Zixala stood in the rebuilt council chamber on the Confederation capital world. Her crystal body had grown new sections, a sign of age and wisdom among her people. Around her, representatives from all 12 species discussed the new galaxy. They were building together, but this wasn't the same Confederation that had existed before the war. The Zentari, Defense Fleet requests permission to test their new battle cruisers, reported Admiral Theclon, his 4 eyes bright with enthusiasm that would have been unthinkable 3 years ago. "They want to run combat exercises with the human training squadrons." "Approved," Zixala replied. "What about the Vorthak?" "They're teaching their crystal song warfare techniques to other species," answered Dr. Mortak, now serving as the Confederation's military science director. "The Nixari have adapted the harmonic frequencies for their technology. Very effective." Through the chamber's viewing windows, Zixala could see the orbital defense platforms that now surrounded every major world. They were built using human designs but improved with alien technology. The galaxy would never be defenseless again. A communication alert chimed, and Admiral Martinez's face appeared on the main display. He was calling from Earth, where the new Galactic Defense Headquarters had been established. "High Coordinator," Martinez said with a slight smile, "we've got good news and interesting news." "Tell me the good news first," Zixala replied. "Hunter Squadron 7 just returned from the Void Sector. They found the last Devourer seed pod hiding in a dead system. It's been destroyed. That makes it official. Every single Devourer in the galaxy is gone." The chamber erupted in celebration. Representatives from dozens of species cheered, clicked, hummed, and expressed joy in their various ways. Zixala felt her crystal form resonate with happiness. "What's the interesting news?" she asked when the chamber quieted down. Martinez's expression became more serious. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something new. Long-range sensors show artificial objects moving in from outside the galaxy. They're not Devourers, but they're definitely not natural." "Another threat?" asked Admiral Theclon, his enthusiasm now mixed with concern. "Unknown. They're still 2 years away at current speed. Could be explorers, refugees, or—" Martinez paused. "Something worse than the Devourers." Zixala felt a familiar chill run through her crystal body. "What are you recommending, Admiral?" "Same thing we always recommend," Martinez replied with a grin that was both friendly and terrifying. "We get ready for a fight. If they come in peace, great. If they don't," he shrugged. "Well, the galaxy knows how to handle unwelcome visitors now." After the communication ended, the chamber buzzed with quiet discussions. The war against the Devourers had changed everyone. The peaceful species of the Confederation had learned that sometimes violence was the only way to protect peace. High Coordinator, Dr. Mortak approached her after the session ended. "I've been reviewing the cultural reports from across the galaxy. The changes are remarkable." "What kind of changes?" Zixala asked as they walked through the corridors toward her office. "Zentari children now play war games as part of their education. Vorthak crystal singers compose battle hymns. Even the philosophical Zirion have established a warrior class." Dr. Mortak paused at a viewing window showing Earth's fleet patrolling the system. "The humans didn't just teach us how to fight. They taught us that fighting for the right reasons is honorable." In her office, Zixala activated her personal communication system and connected to Captain Sarah Chen, who was now leading the Rapid Response Division from a mobile command ship. Sarah, Zixala said, using the informal human naming custom they had adopted. How are the training programs going? Chen's face appeared on the screen, looking older but still carrying that dangerous smile. Better than expected. The Mirloft have become excellent ambush specialists. The Zentari are masters of coordinated fleet actions. And the Zirion, she laughed. Let's just say their telekinetic abilities make them very creative with heavy weapons. Are you concerned about how quickly the other species adapted to warfare? Nope, worried species stay alive. Comfortable species get eaten by things like the Devourers. Chen's expression became more thoughtful. Besides, they're not becoming violent. They're becoming prepared. Big difference. What about Earth? How has your homeworld changed since the war? Chen was quiet for a moment. That's complicated. Most humans are proud that we saved the galaxy, but some are worried about what happens next. Worried about what? About whether the galaxy still needs us. During the war, we had a clear purpose: kill the machines, save everyone. Now, Chen shrugged. We're still the most militaristic species in the galaxy. Some people wonder if that makes us dangerous to our friends. Zixala considered this. Sarah, what do you think? I think humans are what we've always been. Guardians. We don't fight because we like war. We fight because we love peace enough to kill for it. Chen smiled. Besides, someone needs to keep an eye on those new contacts coming from outside the galaxy. After ending the communication, Zixala walked to her office window and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was safe, but it was no longer innocent. Every species now understood that peace required strength, that freedom needed defenders, and that sometimes good people had to do terrible things to protect what they loved. She thought about the human children she had seen during her visit to Earth. They played games that would have horrified previous generations of aliens, but they also learned about honor, sacrifice, and the responsibility that came with power. They were being raised to be warriors, but warriors who fought for others, not themselves. A soft chime indicated another communication. This time it was from the human colony ship New Horizon, one of dozens spreading human culture throughout the galaxy. High Coordinator, said Commander Williams, a young human with the enthusiastic energy that characterized his species. We've established the new training academy on Vorthak Prime. The first mixed-species military class will graduate next month. How are the students adapting to human training methods? Zixala asked. They love it. Yesterday, a Zentari cadet and a Mirloft cadet worked together to solve a tactical problem that stumped our human instructors. They're not just learning our techniques. They're improving them. Zixala smiled, an expression of light that rippled through her crystal form. Commander, what do the human instructors think about teaching warfare to peaceful species? Ma'am, we don't see it as teaching warfare. We see it as teaching protection. There's a difference. Williams paused, looking thoughtful. My grandfather fought the Devourers in the original war. He always said that humans weren't born to be warriors. We became warriors because someone had to. And now? Now everyone understands that responsibility. The galaxy has protectors again, not just humans. That makes the universe a safer place for everyone. As Zixala ended her communications for the day, she reflected on how much had changed. The ancient legends about the Terran warriors had been replaced by modern reality. Humans were no longer mysterious figures from the past. They were friends, teachers, and protectors. But more importantly, humans were no longer alone in their role as guardians. Every species in the galaxy now understood that freedom required vigilance, that peace needed defenders, and that sometimes the greatest act of love was the willingness to fight for others. She activated her personal log and began recording. The war is over, but the watch continues. The galaxy has learned that true peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's having people willing to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. Outside her window, patrol ships from a dozen different species moved through space in formations that combined human tactics with alien innovation. They were ready for whatever new threats might emerge from the vast darkness between galaxies. The sleeping giants had awakened, taught their neighbors to be giants too, and together they stood guard over a galaxy that would never again face its enemies alone. Somewhere in deep space, the unknown contacts continued their approach toward the galaxy. When they arrived, they would find not the same collection of peaceful, defenseless civilizations that the devourers had expected to harvest. They would find a galaxy full of warriors who had learned that the best way to ensure peace was to be absolutely terrifying to anyone who threatened it. And leading those warriors, with enthusiasm and grim determination, would be the species that had turned war into an art form and protection into a sacred duty. The humans were home, and they had brought the whole galaxy with them.